keep way too much stuff, and I know that the time is coming where I'm going to need to go through my boxes in storage and begin getting rid of stuff. But for the meantime, I can build shelves and create additional storage to help me organize what I have in order to maybe help me be a little more systematic in getting rid of things. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense to you, but it sounds reasonable to me. One type of shelf support that I have not tried yet, but I'm going to use in my office is half-inch black pipe and all the fittings that go along with that approach. You see this in kind of contemporary types of settings, and it gives a sort of industrial look to places where it's used. So for me, I'm kind of looking at the idea in the office that connects to my very industrialized shop as being a good place to use it. I've been curious about using this approach for some time, and it's a lot like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, which makes it somewhat entertaining to do. I'll get back to this project shortly. The simplest and probably least expensive type of shelf construction is building shelf supports out of wood. In my case, most of the time I've taken 2x4s and cut them into 1.5-inch pieces to create these types of shelf supports. If I were going to do the wood support brackets, this is the way I would most likely do the layout of everything. I would try to place the brackets over studs if possible, but I wouldn't have a big concern about that because of the way the weight is distributed over a number of surfaces and connecting points. So if the layout of my brackets was not going to allow me to screw into a stud, I would use some type of toggle bolts to attach the wood brackets to the sheetrock. There are varieties of toggle bolts that really work great for lots of uses, and it can be surprising how well they work if you're installing a number of them and distributing the weight load of the shelves on those fasteners over a good span of distance. My main concern with the placement of the brackets is to try to allow for the best use of space, because the brackets are going to get in the way of anything that's placed on the shelves where the brackets are installed. So you're losing storage space, and that's the biggest negative in my opinion. But for a quick, very functional type of shelf installation, this is a cheap and relatively easy way to go. Floating shelves are another way to create great storage space, and my favorite approach is to use 5/8-inch all-thread rods for the shelf supports. I have a video linked above that shows the process I use for installing the all-thread rods, and you'll find lots of comments from people sharing their views and insights on this approach. A quick way to get them in service is to put shelving on top of the rods and secure them in place using simple copper or plastic pipe clamps. Second approach I use is to build frames that are installed over the all-thread rods, and then I build hollow shelves to slip over the frames. The frames are 1.5 inches thick and attached to the rods in a variety of ways. The hollow shelves are 2 inches thick with 1/4-inch panels on the top and bottom, with a 2-inch thick hardwood front edge on the shelves. I cut a 1/4-inch dado in the top and bottom of the hardwood edge, then glue and pin nail the panels in place. You need to support the back of the panels with 1.5 inch spacers until you're ready to slip them over the frames. The versatility of this approach is that you can make these shelves showpieces in your office or home. Depending on the material you use and the effort you put into building them, these shelves can be painted or stained to look amazing, depending on the final look you're after. Another approach for a very high-end look for your floating shelves is to install solid hardwood slabs on the all-thread rods. In this case, the wood being used is poplar. Holes a little larger than the all-thread rods need to be drilled very precisely in your hardwood to line up with the rods and allow the slabs to slip over the rods and slide into place. This is a pretty challenging undertaking for even an experienced woodworker, and you're working with expensive materials. But this is the ultimate look for floating shelves. As I said earlier, the all-thread rod approach and some type of floating shelves is my preferred method for projects like this. But I wanted to try the pipe support approach, and so let me talk through this and explain what my conclusions are at this point. It is like putting a puzzle together. I ordered a variety of parts online, and they were very easy to get, as well as not being particularly expensive for what you're getting. In fact, some vendors package the various fittings you need in self-contained boxes, so that was convenient. I used half-inch pipe and needed the flanges that mount to the wall, as well as 90-degree L's, couplings, and T's. Beyond that, I bought pieces of pipe in various sizes, which will make more sense shortly. I find that the best way for me to start doing something that I've never tried before is to just begin. So I did that and realized that probably the best way to start is to begin in the corner. Generally speaking, my studs are 16 inches on center, so I was hoping that using 14-inch pieces of pipe along with a coupling and two T's would let me stretch approximately 32 inches between flanges so that I could screw the flanges into studs. As luck would have it, my first opportunity to have that work out perfectly did not work out, and my two pieces of 14-inch pipe and the fittings attached to them did not align with the next stud. But the next flange would mount to the header above the door with 3 screws, so I opted to leave the pipe pieces as they were and plan on using toggle bolts in the flange that missed the stud. To install these toggle bolts, you drill a hole large enough to slip the bolt portion in the hole, which is usually about 1/2 inch. This is the actual style of bolt that I use a lot these days. The part I like about them is you can remove the bolt itself from the hole without losing the entire clamping setup like you do with the old style of toggle bolts. They are very easy to use once you get the hang of it. I use the screw gun to run the bolts up snug against the flange, but then use a screwdriver to hand tighten bolts the rest of the way so that I don't over tighten the toggle bolts. I like the visual look of the spacing of the flanges and support pieces using the 14-inch pieces of pipe along with various fittings to give me roughly 32-inch spacing between the flanges and pipe extending from the wall. I didn't get too carried away with tightening the pieces of pipe because I just don't feel like it was necessary. So I tightened the pipe and fittings enough to make them snug. If I'm installing pipe that's going to be carrying water or gas and is under pressure, obviously, you add joint compound to the threads and tighten everything up very well to avoid having any leaks. But this use of the 1/2-inch pipe is a whole different application. You are probably getting the idea now. I'm using 14-inch pieces of pipe to extend from the flanges mounted to the wall, and then tying that structure together with T's and couplings primarily to join the pieces of pipe together. As you work, you're trying to determine where your next flange will connect to the wall and figure out various pipe lengths that will get you as close as possible to the next flange position. I did quickly realize that I was going to need more flexibility with the lengths of pipe that I had, so I ordered additional pipe pieces in lengths ranging from about 3 inches through 7 inches, and also picked up some 12-inch pieces to go with my most used 14-inch pieces of pipe. So this process gets repeated over and over again as you build out the support structure of the pipe. Now, I'm okay with using toggle bolts where it's absolutely necessary, but the preferred way to install these flanges to the wall is to screw them into a stud. So I have 3 toggle bolts in this flange because my stud detector lied to me, but the rest of the way around on the right side I was able to hit wood with every flange. To get this corner to work out okay, I installed a 7-inch piece of pipe here and then a 2.5-inch piece here, which with the T added onto it perfectly hit the next stud that was available on the right wall. The 14-inch piece of pipe and flange were just a little short of reaching the wall, so I had to add a 1/4-inch piece of filler material in that gap. But the next flange lined up with the wall perfectly, so that's an example of building construction not always being accurate. You're always having to be ready to adapt as needed. I decided to switch from a stud detector to a magnet to locate the rest of the studs on my installation, which is also a good approach to use. I need to get a stronger magnet that will really lock in on the sheetrock screws and make this a little quicker, but it seems I don't remember when I'm at the hardware store to do that. The only other installation comment I want to mention is that when you're installing the flanges into individual studs, you will only be able to put screws in 2 of the holes, and the 3rd hole you will need to install a toggle bolt in. The width of the studs doesn't allow for any other approach besides this, so that's just something to keep in mind. For my purposes, I'm only going to place shelving on top of the pipe structure and load them up with boxes for the meantime. Nothing fancy. The name of the game for me is freeing up floor space because I use the office for a variety of things, including shooting videos. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the pipe installation and think it'll serve my purposes well. I still like the all-thread rods probably better. By the way, the green curtain is for shooting green screen footage in the office, which is where I record most of my videos. Thanks for watching.